Box. Today I'm in conversation with Sriya Chilla. She's a mental health advocate and she's in high school. And she is getting ready to prep for college, but she is part of this wonderful organization called California Mental Health Advocacy for Children and Youth, also known as CMHACY. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I want to just tell listeners that a little bit about CMHACY, what they do. As I put on the show blog, which is otbseries.com, they advance the social, emotional, and behavioral well-being of children and families and promote inclusion, racial equity, and social justice for all through convening, education, and advocacy. Tell me how you got involved in this organization.
Honestly, I got involved by participating in my first conference with CMHACY. It was the 2021 conference, and I was on a youth board panel. And I was just kind of amazed at how we were like 4 youth, I think, on this panel. And we had 2 adults kind of as moderators for us. And they were just so interested in learning about our experiences. We were on Zoom and we had like the chat box completely filled with questions from like psychologists and like social workers and people that have been in this field for so long. And having like those kind of people interested in what I'm saying was just so amazing to me. And I knew I had to be part of this organization. So I applied to be a board member and I got it.
It's fantastic. How long have you been with this organization?
It's coming around to a year now.
Okay. Has this helped you in some way or in a lot of ways during the pandemic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think being able to actually take action towards what I'm seeing in school and with my friends every day because of the pandemic has given me more strength. And I've been able to refer other youth to leadership positions in mental health so that they can also speak their truth and make their voice heard.
Yeah. What do you think about the struggles that students your age are going through? Before the pandemic, we were in a mental health crisis, and now we're in a mental health pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think the pandemic just exacerbated all of the problems that we've already seen because of that lack of social connection and face-to-face connection and relationships. And so feeling alone with your problems is 10 times worse than being kind of with your problems, but still around other people and being able to talk to other people. And so what I've seen a lot coming back to school after the pandemic is a lot of social apathy and just a loss of connectedness that I think we used to feel. A lot more kind of competitiveness with each other, more of like judgment rather than acceptance that we should be having because we've all been through the pandemic and we've all faced the same struggles.
Right. Do you see people that have changed a lot? Some of your peers have changed as far as they don't want to socialize. They're staying home more. They're not as outgoing as they used to be.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of that. And I'm a senior right now in high school and we're done with college apps and we're done with like deciding on which college we're going to go and deciding on our future essentially. But a lot of people are still, one is that they're still afraid of COVID, and that's an understandable fear.
Sure.
So they're staying home more. But I've also seen a lot of people that just stay home because they don't want to interact with other people. They'd rather just like stay in their room playing video games or just doing something with screen time rather than connecting in person, which we're more able to do now that the lockdowns are done.
Do you think at first when people had to be on Zoom, they weren't happy about it, and then they were depressed about it, and then they got used to it, and now it's hard to go back to being in person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think especially because we're growing socially, having that like weird halt of 2 years when we had to learn how to be online kind of halted our social skills in person. And yeah, I definitely think that people would rather interact online now than in person, just because of comfortability with being online for the past 2 years. But that's not something that's going to stay for the next, the rest of our lives. So that is some social skills in person are something that we do have to learn. We do have to kind of get out and like meet each other in person.
Yeah. Before the pandemic, did you have friends that were struggling with their mental health as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. I come from a really competitive high school in San Diego, and yeah, we definitely have a lot of that, like not feeling enough.
Mhm.
We've had a bunch of stuff where people get kicked out of friend groups because they're not taking enough APs or taking enough challenging courses,
Mm.
and that definitely impacts your own self worth and how you see yourself. So yeah, we definitely had a lot of mental health problems before the pandemic.
Yeah. I've been telling students that even if you're not doing well academically, it does not predict your future.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was hard for you to keep going successfully in the pandemic academically?
Yeah, I think so. I just felt a lack of motivation because for me, the fun of school was like learning and being with others and growing together. And
Right.
so that was definitely something that I've talked to a lot of my friends about is that we didn't really feel like going to class. We didn't feel like it was also because all of the social and political things that were going on during that time period. We felt like school was kind of felt useless
Yeah.
um, when you compare it to like the big, the larger scope of things and the like Black Lives Matter protests and all of these other stuff that just felt more important and felt more urgent than school.
Yes. Do you think the pandemic shone shined a light on these issues that were already there, but it just really made people wake up?
Oh yeah, I think it did, and I think that the younger generation has been a lot more exposed and globally aware to the stuff that has been going on,
Mhm.
which I think is good. But also there is like that anxiousness that comes from that. Um, you know about the things that are going on halfway across the world and you feel weird and anxious that it would happen to you or that you can live this life right now, but in Ukraine people are struggling
I
and
know.
they have to move out of their homes and things like that. There's a lot of anxiety that like you can't really reason through it because you're not the one going through it, but knowing that that's happening across the world is it still makes you feel uncomfortable and anxious in school or whatever you're doing.
Do you spend a lot of time on your phone looking at news feeds and seeing? I mean, I would if I was your age. Is that is that where you get all your news just on your phone and then you feel anxious watching that stuff?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. And I think it permeates into social media, which again has a good and bad side. But even
Yeah,
if you just want to take a break and just go on social media and talk to your friends or something, something news worthy will pop up on your feed. And that again creates those feelings of anxiety that we feel.
sure. I mean, yes, I agree. And I've been hearing a lot of people say there is the good and the bad. I mean, when Greta Thunberg left her country and then inspired millions of students to protest climate change and leave school, I thought that was incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember the school shooting in Florida.
Right.
When that happened, we kind of our generation took social media to advocate for the gun violence policy changes that we wanted to see. So it definitely
Yeah.
does have a positive impact too.
I've said this before, but I really admire your generation because you're very passionate about issues that matter to you, to your future, that we should have been paying attention to, and we weren't. Yeah.
I admire my generation too, and I think this is the change that we need to see in the world. And I think our generation is taking the first step towards that, and hopefully other generations will also follow.
The other thing is I've noticed your generation, a lot of people feel very comfortable saying, I need a mental health day, or I'm taking care of my mental health. Like that, those phrases coming out of their mouth are very common, whereas someone older might not feel as comfortable because it was not something that was accepted and admired, and people didn't feel comfortable.
Mhm. I was just talking to a teacher about this like a week ago. She said that even just walking around the classroom and stuff, she could hear people sitting at a table group with actually like strangers, like they're not friends, but they just know each other as classmates.
Mhm.
People like talk to each other about how they're feeling and things like, oh yeah, yesterday I stayed up all night because I had this assignment to finish or this essay or whatever it is. And I'm feeling kind of sad about it, anxious about my grade, or I'm feeling tired. I really don't feel like working today. Things like that. We're much more open with sharing our thoughts and feelings. And I
It's really
think that's
good.
good. It's definitely an
Yeah,
amazing thing that we've kind of developed, but it needs to, I think, be followed up and appreciated by staff at school.
right. And so let me ask you about school. And I'm not trying to throw your teachers under the bus, as they would say. Um, do you feel, I mean, teachers have goals and deadlines and academic things they have to focus on, but do you feel that there needs to be better policies in place so mental health can take a priority in schools?
Definitely. I mean, I think one thing that teachers and staff at school have to keep in mind is that mental health, that academics follow mental health. I mean, if you're not doing mentally well, are you really, even if you're sitting in class and like listening or like watching the teacher lecture, are you really taking in that information? Are you going to remember it at the end of the day or at the end of the week? Are you
Right.
going to test well? So academics always follow mental health. And I think it's important to address those mental health needs before we kind of pressure kids into doing academics. And definitely my school is doing, or I see the teachers and the staff trying to do this. I mean, I remember before the pandemic, I think I was in 10th grade, one of my teachers, something traumatic happened in my community, and one of my teachers just took the day to kind of address the situation. She pushed back all of the scheduling, all of the things we had scheduled, the assignments and stuff. And she
Great.
just took the entire period of 90 minutes to talk about what we felt about the situation and what we were feeling in general with stress and anxiety and just the political events that were surrounding us. And I think that was a really open
Great.
discussion where we could let her know what we're feeling. She could let us know what she's feeling. And we could let each other know what we're each feeling so we don't feel alone in that. So I see teachers taking that step forward, but I think more policy wise, what needs to be implemented in schools and what I'm advocating for currently is peer-to-peer programs where students can support other students because we know our struggles the most. We live in the same era. There are developments like social media and the pandemic that we understand what each other are going through. So.
I love that you said that because I've been saying in the work I do and the talks I give, I feel that adults can't go in and say, this is what you need, because you're really the customer. It's really about you, what you need. And I believe that if there are more peer-to-peer programs and initiatives for you to connect, then it takes the pressure off of teachers and maybe that one or two counselors, right, who feel overwhelmed. And yes, you can go to that counselor if something is really bad, right? But maybe you can go and do peer-to-peer initiatives, which help you resolve things, right? Because maybe your peer could empathize with what you're going through and you can work through something. But I know that this has been a really interesting conversation because a lot of students feel the way you do, that there need to be more peer-to-peer programs.
Definitely. And also, I mean, peers being able to kind of open the conversation with other students and make them comfortable sharing their mental health needs. That kind of bridges the gap between the mental health professionals, school psychologists, and people that exist on school and the peers. Because if there's something really serious going on, something the peer counselor feels overwhelmed with or incapable of handling for any reason, or a crisis is happening, something like that, they can refer that student over to the school psychologist, physically walking them from whatever room they're talking in to the
Yes.
school psychologist's office and like establishing that connection relationship. Because
Yes.
right now, I know from my personal experience, my friends' experiences, we're not using the mental health professionals that are on campus. And so that's the best way to even bridge that gap.
I'm hearing that too. That's another theme that's popping up is that students are not going to the mental health professionals within the school.
Right.
That
Yeah.
they don't feel that they're heard or they don't feel comfortable going to that person. So they don't go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's that generational gap where, like, how can you expect someone who's maybe 30, 40 years old to understand what it's like to be 17 in this new era? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
No offense, but they lived high school like that long ago, and
Right.
there's so many different things that have happened since
Yes.
then.
Right. And you've missed potentially milestones because of the pandemic, and you've gone through certain things, and nobody can really understand unless they're part of your generation. We don't truly understand unless we're part of your generation. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would love to see more adults be receptive to peer-to-peer initiatives, because I think that holds a lot of power.
Mhm. And it starts with each county, because we know that California is a more county-run state. Each county is so different from the next. And it starts with those county leaders to start kind of the initiative to make this a thing in all schools. Our goal is to get this established in all California high schools. And so having the counties on board is really important for us to accomplish that goal. And then we work our way up to the state. There's a couple of bills that are going through the Assembly and Senate right now that kind of give funding to that structure of peer to peer. So we're looking into that right now.
So let me back up a second. Tell me a little bit more about the organization. So what you're saying is they're supporting peer-to-peer initiatives, and you said there's funding for people that are providing peer-to-peer initiatives?
Yeah, so the organization supports a lot of different mental health initiatives, and one of the ones that I and another youth board member are working on is peer to peer. We're also working with a lot of other people who used to be on the board, actually, now have kind of transitioned off, but they are helping us with finding the funding that's coming down from Governor Newsom and the state to fund peer-to-peer programs as a whole structure that could actually be existing on campus.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about the organization?
Well, one thing is that the organization just finished our yearly conference, our 2022 conference. Our theme was not business as usual, from conversation to action. And so we focused a lot on the action part of policy, because usually we just talk at these conferences, but never turns into actual action that we could follow up with. So we just finished that. That was in this month, I think May or April, like end of April. And it was an amazing conference. I'm pretty sure we recorded a lot of those segments and panels that we had. So if anyone's interested, I could send you the link, and then maybe you could distribute that later.
I would love to listen, and I could even share it on the show blog.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And so when you go off to college, is this something you'll continue to do?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I'm going to UCLA next fall, so I know that LA, the community, has a lot of a very large homeless and foster youth population, and I'm more interested in shifting my mental health focus over to that group specifically, as well as continuing to work with student mental health.
That's great.
Thank you.
What other suggestions would you have for adults listening to this, thinking, what can we do better as humans, basically, to help one another improve mental health?
Mm-hmm. I think I would say, especially if you have a student or a child that is a student, I would say to kind of advocate at your school board meetings, because I've seen how much power that parents have. At the CMHACY conference this year, we had a parent panel, and they were just, their stories were so influential, and saying those types of things at the school board meetings influences how that school uses the money that's coming down to them. And so essentially you can be an advocate for your students' mental health, and influence how that money is used to redirect it towards student mental health, because every school needs to invest more in mental health. There's no escaping that need. And it's right now there's a lot of money coming down, but there's not a lot of usage, or how students are, or how the school is using it is not completely followed through on.
It feels like it needs to be consistent, because it's not consistent. One school told me they had mental health week, 1 week in the whole year. And I thought, that's nothing.
Right.
you know?
And we have that too. What it ends up being usually is we have a bunch of mental health clubs on campus, which we're very privileged to have. But what it ends up being is just posters around the campus. And at a certain point, just awareness is not enough. It needs to be followed up with that direct access to care on campus, which is why
Yes.
peer-to-peer is such an influential model.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Well, I feel like all the things that you've done during the pandemic has helped you in a lot of ways stay mentally strong.
Yeah. Yeah, I think taking action towards mental health makes sure that the students, high school students that come after me will have something to rely on in terms of getting care on campus.
Not only that, but when you go off to college, you've got this toolkit of self-care and resilience and knowledge, and where some people going off to college, they don't always feel so strong.
Right. Yeah, and I'm hoping that our generation has that emphasis throughout their entire lives of self-care and mental health, that we all kind of come into college this year feeling more confident in our abilities and confident that we'll be able to adapt to this change.
Definitely. Do you have ideas of what you want to major in college?
Yeah, I'm majoring in psychobiology.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
hmm
Have you wanted to do that for a while?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a psychiatrist. Right now, I work as a crisis counselor at the California Youth Crisis Line. So I wanted to take that experience and kind of just pursue that for my entire career. I love talking to people and I love understanding mental illness and making the public policy change that needs to happen so that mentally ill people have the support that they need in their community and throughout the state for getting the care that they need.
That's wonderful. Are there a lot of policy changes? I think you said coming down the line soon, because I saw the Attorney General's, I guess it was a white paper announcement, and then the next thing I heard, oh, in a few years. And I feel like we just need to do this now already.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I've been hearing a lot of in the next few years too. We've had a lot more bills that focus on mental health coming down from the state, but not a lot of like agencies still have to implement that. So not a lot of like direct action right now, which is needed because this is such an urgent issue.
Right. Yeah. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. I want to thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you too.